And here we go. Welcome to What Strange Savages, episode number 7-ish. Today we're got an interesting topic. I'll let Jason, you introduce it and
Yeah.
let us know where we
Today
go.
we want to talk about the power of consistency and how that applies to your life, the lessons we've learned along the way. And I really want to start off with a quote by Aristotle to nicely frame this. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you took the thought train out of my head because that's really good.
It's powerful.
You should have told me that before the podcast so I could have prepared. I just have to sit here and revel in that. That's awesome. Is not what we do, or sorry, is not excellence is not a thing we do, but a habit we have, or
Uh, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not a habit or an act, but a habit. It's never
right.
something that is just in the moment. It's something that you are consistently.
Right, that you consistently do. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah, I think consistency is there's a reason that's the operative word for today. So I'll mention the thing that brought me to that point with the consistency is, so to start from the beginning is how you measure your results, and I think that's where consistency can be one of the most powerful tools. So if you're just measuring yourself randomly, like literally everyone, including myself, does, it just doesn't tell you enough. That's how you end up with superstition. That's how you end up with illusory correlations, right? Things that just seem to work together. It seems like every time I eat a cheeseburger the next day, I talk to a cute girl. It's like the two things are completely unrelated, probably.
Yeah.
But it's just because you noticed it once or twice, you all of a sudden think it happens all the time. And then more importantly, when you talk about discipline and with other people, and I mean, to me, that's always a big thing because I'm always concerned about how people treat children. I think that's a huge one, and people seem to think that discipline is, like violent discipline is really effective in some circumstances. Most people don't want to say it's good all the time, but they'll
Right.
say that sometimes you just really need to hit a kid, basically, to get your result. So I'll just introduce that video I saw by a awesome channel called Veritasium,
Yeah.
where he talks about regression to the mean. And what he says is that there was this bunch of Israeli fighter pilots in probably, I think, the 50s, or I guess it can't have been because that's Israel. Let's say 60s, 70s. Say whatever. There's Israeli fighter pilots, and they were doing a bunch of test runs, and they wanted to figure out how to get their pilots to perform the best. And they wanted to basically see, was it carrot or the stick? Is it by enticing them? Is it by giving them positive reinforcement, telling them they've done a good job, and rewards, or is it by giving them a punishment when they screw up, whatever? I'm assuming they knew that it would be or they thought it would be some combination of the two. So what they found is that when the pilots performed extremely well and were given, reinforcement, compliments, you're amazing, you did well, I think some actual literal rewards as well, the next couple runs, the fighter pilots in general didn't do as well. So they actually technically decreased from that high point. Whereas pilots who performed really poorly, screwed up a maneuver badly and were given a punishment, reprimand, something, to make them remember it, they would actually improve on the next few runs.
Yeah.
So the instant assessment that you make, and that most people make, is that punishment helps and rewards don't really help. But the truth of the matter is that the extreme successes and extreme failures in the flights and with everything else are anomalies. They're not things that usually happen.
Yeah, they're just outliers.
Yeah, it's like if you're flipping a coin 50 times, one of the times it lands on its side instead of either of the heads.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you punish it or reward it, just the next time it's probably just going to land on heads or tails.
Right.
Right? Which is kind of what happens with the fighter pilots. They're all extremely skilled pilots. Some are probably worse or better than others. But in general, they weren't measuring single people, right? And like slowly changing the, rewards and punishments for those people. They were just measuring them as a group and just randomly saying, "Oh, this person did really well. Let's give them a reward." Well, whether you give that person a reward or even if you give them a punishment for succeeding, the next time they fly, they're probably just not going to fly spectacularly because that's just not how life works. There's a lot of random chance in flying. And when I say a lot, I mean their entire job is to control the random chance and to keep it as much as they can under their control. But there's still a certain amount of things that just happen and variables that interact that you just don't quite predict.
Yeah, there was
I think.
this
Go ahead.
book I read. It's by C.S. Lewis, and he
Yeah.
actually had this quote in there, which I love. He was comparing people playing tennis, how you think that you're when you're doing amazing, when you're outlying things, your normal game, and any time that you do your normal skill level, you think
Yeah.
it's a poor game kind of thing, just
Right. So
because you're
people in general are like, "Oh, I'm doing badly today,"
yeah
when that's really basically their normal game is just
yeah
meh.
because people have no ability to see themselves objectively how good their skill is in
Right.
relation to like everything else, right? Especially if you're new at the game or it's not something that you play every day, so that you can
Right.
actually
Right.
identify what you
Well,
did right here and what you did wrong. Is that what's that law where like the
Murphy's
less
law.
you know about something, the less
Okay.
complex you think it is?
Right. Oh, it's the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah,
That when you don't know much about something, you tend to basically you tend to overestimate your abilities because you don't realize how far you are from being really good.
yeah,
You're like, oh yeah, I'm like pretty much all the way there to being really good. I can already do most of this. And then when somebody who's amazing understands that they're only this much better than all the bad people, but that this much is really important, and the guy who's better than them is only this much better, but that's
yeah.
even more important and even harder to accomplish.
And I fall into that all the time when like I'm playing
Do
like
you? I didn't notice that.
what?
Nothing. Continue.
Yeah, I am. Fuck you. No, I fall into that all the time when I'm playing like a sport that like I don't normally play, but it's not like a in my opinion, high skill cap sport like
Every.
bowling. You
Okay.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like it's there's you pitch it down there, and every now and again I'll get a strike, but every now and again I'll get like 10, like a bunch of strikes in a row, and I'll think I'm the best, like God's gift to bowling.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and the important thing, I just want to interject quickly because it's what you said with the tennis thing too. The important part is that in your head, and I just know this from personal experience, when you get all those strikes, what it feels like is, yeah, I can do that. That's
yeah,
what I can do. The other stuff was just me screwing up,
yeah,
but this is what I'm totally capable of. As
yeah,
opposed to thinking like, wow, this is a thing I happen to do.
yeah. No, exactly. So like I'll think the next time I go in like, oh, and you just see I just came back from Phoenix. We were playing golf, me and
Yeah,
my brother or whatever. And apparently before I got down there, my
yeah.
brother was killing it at golf. Like he broke 80. Like that's an insane score if you know
Okay.
nothing
Yeah,
about
I don't know anything, but yeah.
golf or whatever. But like since that point, he couldn't put anything together, and he was getting so frustrated. Like he was like, "What the hell's happening to me?" He couldn't. He kept retiring clubs because they weren't hitting right. So like he was by the end, he was down to like a pitching wedge in his putter because those are the only two things that he could actually hit the ball with. That wasn't screwing up. And it's just like
Yeah.
you just expected him to be at this like zen point of golf.
Right. Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
like I coming in and like I do a little zen practice on there so I keep out of mind because
Yeah.
golf is probably the one sport that will like test your patience quickest.
Oh,
Like,
I
it,
would say a lot of them do, but yeah, yeah.
no, it's
Oh, I know
unbelievable.
what you mean though. Yeah,
You got to play it a couple of times, like because
yeah,
like you'll get that one shot and then you'll be like, what the hell is going on, and everything will fall. So I've come to like a place of peace and understanding with my golf game.
yeah.
So I was pretty consistent the whole time, and my brother kept having these meltdowns after meltdowns. Like I was surprised he didn't break half his clubs, kind of thing on the golf course.
Well, and here's something to totally throw in a little bit off, but it's very connected. I mean, what we're both basically saying, and I think, is that there is a lot of random chance in most of the stuff you do, unless you're like a total expert, But even then, there's a certain amount of random chance. Like there's just stuff. But I was thinking about it, and I think one of the things that people like they use superstition, so they think that it was my lucky slippers or whatever, and so that may work because you have confidence when you're wearing them, which is that's a literal
Yeah,
change. But I think one of the things people overlook because they go, okay, no, the wind is the same, the day is the same, or it's the same golf course. There's no wind, it's Phoenix. The only thing different is you, Jason. You're there now. You're you're screwing up your brother's golf game.
yeah,
I'm not sure that he said that, but that's like something that would occur to people often, right? And I think some of the stuff people really overlook, and I know you'd understand because you've helped me with this too, is your diet and understanding that your body is constantly cycling. Your
Yeah.
digestive system is cycling. Your circulatory system is cycling, right? Your sleep system is cycling. And the natural human sleep cycle isn't really 24 hours. I can't remember, it's something more like 40 hours or something crazy.
Yeah.
Like if there was no light or sound, which, it's not a big, huge deal, but it's one of those things that when your sleep cycle actually happens to be on that day, like you actually slept when your body really
Yeah.
wanted to, it doesn't mean you didn't get a good night's sleep the other days, but there is something special about being on that cycle, right? These two wavelengths, this cycle's a little bit off, and today it was just in the right spot, and you happen to eat exactly the food that your body needed to continue to be on a peak cycle, to be recruiting all your brain power, and
Yeah.
all your abilities.
Good night.
Do you need a second?
No, I'm good.
Recruiting all your abilities into the same activity and actually working coherently together,
Yeah.
right? And I think people overlook the fact that that is essentially a random chance thing, especially if you don't know about it. That is one of those random chance things. They go, I know I can do this. I did this before.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of those things that people don't even notice or don't even think about, is the fact that your body is doing all these waves and cycles, and sometimes they're just working together and sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
And like when they're not, it's not a thing you can, as much as I like meditation and stuff, when they're not, it's often not something you can just will into place right here and now. You know what I mean? If they're totally off, you can't just say, "Oh, but I want to be."
Yeah.
I want to be
The
on.
whole
I want to
mind-
be zen right now.
The whole mind over matter thing is blown out of proportion as far as I understand it, and my experience of it anyway.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Where it's like you can change anything. It's not that. It's you can come to accept anything.
Right.
So like I'm in a bad mood and I accept that, rather than I'm changing it into a good mood. You can just have that like brief little buffer of understanding that you're in a bad mood, so your interactions have changed to compensate for it.
Yeah, and that helps you mitigate it a bit, right? It helps it lose its edge and its power over you. It's still there. It's just not like overwhelming you, I think. But yeah, you can't just like get rid of it. You can't just get rid of a completely stressed out state, especially if there's a good reason to be stressed.
No.
So I think the thing you can do, and this will lead us back into the consistency, mind over matter to me, is less about willpower over just I want to be different right now, and is much more about it's so much more boring and so much less superstitious, but mind over matter is more literal. It is, I want to be better, I have to read a book about how to be better, and then I have to do all of the things that it says, and then find out which of those works for me. Right? I want to be less, anxious. Sometimes it's a huge part is your diet, right? Like to me, sugar and bread have a lot of that effect on me. They make me a little jittery. Like they just set my whole body on like a little bit more of a anxious.
I always get a
mode.
fog in my brain every time I have like a big sandwich or like some kind of grain thing. Like I just get this fog that I can't get rid of for a while.
Yeah.
It's not it's not all encompassing, but it's enough to be really irritating when you start recognizing it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For me, what I've noticed is I can feel my body shaking a little more. Like everyone has a certain amount of quiver, right? And it just increases like a certain amount, and then I just have considerably less tolerance for things. Like I just react more quickly. I get more upset or more happy even, or more excited about things. Like I have sort of less buffer and stability in myself.
Right.
But that's another. I think that's probably easily a whole other topic. But I think so. This is one of those things that mind over matter isn't saying I don't want to be stressed or twitchy right now. It's just going, all right, sugar and bread, like eating a muffin, makes me all twitchy. So mind over matter isn't something I can fix right now. Mind over matter means taking my mind, understanding that, and then applying it to the real world.
Yeah.
Next time I have an important meeting, I have an important thing to do at work, I don't eat a bunch of bread before. I eat what I know works for my body and what I know is functioning for me.
No. Yeah, I find that until what's ailing me is made conscious in my mind, I'm a slave to it.
Right.
So, like, if I lack of sleep but I don't understand that I'm tired, I get really bitchy with everyone that talks to me.
Oh, and you look for a place to put it, right?
Yeah.
I know because I do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they'll be, he's irritating me because he said one thing that was like slightly off pitch and like slightly too long, and then he may have like rubbed his nose in a weird way after it. He's the one who's irritating me.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Like,
he
once
keeps
I understand
laughing at
that,
the
like,
wrong time. He keeps
fine.
laughing before the punchline of my jokes. I fucking hate that guy.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. the prime suspect is the fact that I didn't sleep well the night before. Until that is a
Right.
conscious thing, I have no buffer between my jumping on him or whatever, right?
No, absolutely. That describes my experience entirely. Sleep and food I've always found to be incredibly important to me. I'm sure that it's slightly different for different people and different dietary things work, but I have yet to meet someone who I didn't see that effect with. Right?
Oh
Anyone who I've
man,
spent enough time around to like see them eat
it's
breakfast, like
it's
we're hanging out for
staggering
a few
when
hours.
you understand it, and like you'll start to understand why people proselytize diets. Like
Yep.
vegan or like this or like that. It's because when you actually start looking at what you're eating and eat specifically good things, healthy things,
Right.
what a marked improvement it has in your life. And like it's on par with a religious experience
Oh
because
yeah.
you don't know, like, coming from a religious person or whatever, you don't know how important this is until you've actually done it. Like it's
Right.
such a
Yeah.
all-encompassing, world-shifting, like, oh my god, like you're struggling through this the wrong way. Just
Yeah.
look outside the box. This is
Things that affect our psyche, because it's our way of measuring the world.
yeah,
You cannot possibly explain to someone the importance or magnitude of or feeling of experiencing that psyche shift until they experience it,
right. Because
because
you
it's the way we measure. So just explaining
exactly
it to them does not allow them to do it, right?
if
If
you're
it's just another random thing,
yeah
random physical experience, like just a experience of physical pain somewhere, it's hard to imagine physical pain, but you can get a good sense of like how much you want to avoid and whatever. But the psyche thing is very different because it changes how you view things. It changes how you would even view that own experience, right?
well, and it's the whole thing is like if like a fish doesn't know it's wet because it's always
Yeah,
in the water. You have to be able to experience the other side to be able to give a comparison of
yeah,
what eating too much sugar and always being on coffee and
right.
smoking does to you on a consistent basis. You need to
Yeah,
get out of it far enough in
totally.
order to see what the actual impacts are.
Absolutely. And I think for some people, like different kinds of meat, they eating chicken's great for them, eating beef is terrible. And, I don't know, it's different for every person, and I'm sure it is because we all have different ecosystems in our bodies. So when somebody first experiences what they see as that change, it's intense for them. It's intense because their body goes from this constant low hum of discomfort and things being off
Yeah.
into a state of total like comfortability all of a sudden, and it's like, holy crap, is life changing, which is why they always try to get everyone else to do it.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry, I wanted to move back a little bit towards the golf and the consistency though. So I think that knowing those things and controlling for them, things like food, things like sleep, those are the way you those are the ways you really find those great successes. It's not by finding that one, oh, okay, I did this golf swing great, I'm great at golf, or finding this one thing that just sets you in the right mood. It's usually not one thing. It's everything in your life, and it's everything that happens in your day that builds up to that one good experience. If you want to be
right.
incredibly successful in one moment, or even in over an 8 hour span or something, it's everything that leads up to that 8 hours. You have to know, well, after I talk to this person, they stress me out. Even if they don't say anything annoying, they're just a stressful person. And you
Right.
just have to know that, like, that's not something I can do leading up to a really important activity for me.
Right.
And
Right.
then what you can do is you can start to build. So we're talking about consistency and habits. You can start to build a ritual for things that are really important to you. Having that ritual is really important because it allows you to control all the minor things that otherwise would just flow into these big overlapping waves of random chance that sometimes line up on the right spot for you and sometimes just you're in the middle of washed up on the shore, right?
Right. Which kind of brings me into the one of the more impactful things in my life that I've learned.
Yep.
And when I practice it, it's significant the change that it makes in my life versus when I don't practice it. It's still something I struggle with, but having a morning routine,
Right.
like just because we were talking about how before something you want to set yourself up so everything's consistent, so that
Yep.
when something out extraneous happens, you
Yep.
have all this momentum already built up to be able to combat it or whatever, right? And if you like read any books about like any popular, productive people from the past or even now,
Right,
CEOs,
like biographies or self-help things. Is that what you're
yeah,
talking about?
they
Yeah.
all say 100% is morning routine. You need to get into a habit of like you wake up at this time, you do these things, you have a shower, you eat breakfast, and you read the paper or whatever it is. You know, like it's
Hmm.
not so much important what you do; it's how the consistency that you do it. It really starts off your day like a million times better. You're way more productive, and I'm sure you've seen this in yourself, where it's like if you get up at a certain time every day, you actually get stuff done. If you allow yourself to sleep in,
Yeah.
even for like, another 30 minutes or whatever, everything else is a struggle to actually get done.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
I,
and
I think.
uh, like specifically for gym or whatever, like I used to get up and go to the gym and then come back and work. And every time that I followed that, it was perfect, no problem.
Yeah.
Everything else was so easy to do. But it was like the day, like, oh, I'm tired, I'm going to sleep another hour. You couldn't get me in the gym. You couldn't
Right.
even get me because I've already blown the whole day. And I'm like, well, whatever, I already slept in. I might as well not even do anything and
Well,
play.
and again, to me, that it plays into my. I don't even want to call it more hippie side, but it's more like sort of a holistic, I guess, looking at it. Is just we don't realize how much goes on in our bodies and in our instinctive brains, are not our prefrontal cortex, but like just the majority of stuff. And I think that when you build those rhythms, you build a biological rhythm. And I don't even think that's total conjecture on my part. I'm pretty sure there's people have backed this up, but your body is preparing to go to the gym.
Right.
And when you know you're going to go to the gym every morning or every other morning, whatever it is, your body is sort of prepared on this cycle. And even when you think about it the night before, your body prepares that cycle.
Yeah.
I've always been able to do the internal alarm clock. I still
Yeah.
set one just in case, because it's not 100%. But when I decide I want to wake up, I wake up at that time. I
Yeah.
tell myself before I go to bed, and I sit and I envision it, and I envision waking up, looking at the clock, and then getting straight out of bed. And I never, ever just lay there in bed when that
Yeah.
happens.
Oh man, that's the death sentence.
I don't roll around. No, no, no. Yeah, and everyone knows that. Yeah, that's like everyone knows the snooze button is the death sentence. Like you've
Yeah.
screwed yourself. And I think that's why, because it's about those waves. It's about catching the wave at its peak and riding it, as opposed to letting it, fall back in the hole. And so when you set that rhythm with your waking up and then working out, then going to work, when you don't work out, it's kind of that like, and you go to push something and it's not there, and then you kind of just fall on your face and start like falling down the stairs, like, oh shit, what is I? And then you can't even get back to your feet because you're just now in this topsy-turvy world of your body's just guessing. Is it mealtime? Okay, it's not mealtime. So it jacks up the insulin rate.
Yeah.
It expects food at this time. Right,
Yeah.
it jacks up your insulin, and then no food comes, and it's just like and consumes all the fat
Yeah.
and sugar sitting in your body,
Well, and
and then you go into sugar withdrawal, and you're like, holy fuck.
that gave me a thought. You know how our brain is neurons firing in a row, like just sensitivity. Like all our tracks,
Yes.
like our digestive tract is like a brain in a sense, right?
Oh, okay, yep.
It's it's like neurons firing with each other. So it's just
Yeah,
a little bit more
it's a little
spread out
system or whatever. Yeah.
and a little less complex, but like it's almost like you're operating with all these systems running or whatever. So if you have consistency to it, your digestive tract will always know that you're about to eat at this time, right?
Right.
And like, so we'll start preparing exactly what you said. And if you start throwing off the rhythm, then it has no idea how to help you out with your day while you're trying to like
Yeah.
override all these impulses to like
Yeah.
control and get your day done while things blow up in your face.
No, absolutely. Well, and yeah, because it will sometimes Pavlovian, right? The Pavlovian response, you expect a certain thing, or your part of your body expects a certain thing. It'll happen at that time, and if you're not prepared for it, if you don't satiate that need, right? Whether it's you just go and sit on the toilet every morning as soon as you wake up, or as soon as you have your coffee is like a normal one, right? But if you
Yeah.
don't, then all of a sudden it's just like your colon's just backed up and just like, it might not hurt or be a big deal, but then halfway through the day, your body is just now gone into like everything's backlogged because your body usually does this and then does this.
Yeah.
Maybe the exact time isn't important. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Because also your body just changes naturally and goes through different cycles. So I think you can adjust your rhythm and it's good. As long as it's adjusting in listening to your body, right? Not just adjusting randomly, just changing things, but adjusting when your body needs it. But if you don't listen to that and your body wants to do them in this order and you just skip the first step, your body just doesn't. Things just don't fire on time.
Yeah.
and they just don't happen in the right way.
I think a great way to illustrate this is like you're not so much directing your body in your life as more so coaxing it in the right direction,
Right.
right? Like where like you have to set up all these things to work out, and then
Yeah.
kind of like gently steer it in the direction you want. If you just try to force anything, and like anyone who's tried to quit anything cold turkey knows this, like the more you try to force it, the less you'll respond. Like you can do it for a
Well,
little bit, then
and
you'll
that's what
burn out
everyone's
and go even deeper into it,
right.
right?
But that's what everyone always says is they're like, quitting smoking or quitting, doing coke or something. It's like the hard part is the ritual.
Yeah.
The hard. They always say the hardest part is like, but they need that ritual. That ritual has become part of their existence, right? I work for a certain amount of time, and then I go outside and I take a deep breath, and I smoke,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. And it's like the hardest part is the fact that like, yeah, the rest of your entire day is now screwed up.
Yeah.
Even though smoking isn't great for your lungs, your body now has an entire pattern and system of recognition going. It's okay, we can do a period of high stress functioning highly at work for this amount of time because we know that we're going to get that break after. All of a sudden without smoking, you're just like, I don't know, I guess I don't need to take a break. And you just keep working, but your body's like, no, we only do it in hour-long spurts because that's all we know how to do. Like you've trained your body to only function on this level or at this frequency and this duration, and then all of a sudden you're just changing it because you don't realize that the ritual of the timing is what's important.
It's interesting. One of the methods of quitting smoking that's probably the more effective ones is not to like if you're gonna like start working out and getting healthy or whatever, it's not to stop smoking right away. It's to actually try to go to the gym a bunch of times and work out. And then like your body starts like, hey, okay, we can't handle this cigarette anymore. Like it's let out and it's hindering us. So you get like this actual negative in your life, and because you already changed this part of it, it allows you a door to sneak them out, kind of thing. Where it's like, oh, well, I'm healthy now and I can breathe and I want to be able to breathe, so I'm not gonna. And you know that's with me. Anytime I go to the gym consistently for a long time, I don't smoke at all. When I stop, I start smoking again, and it's like just the way it is with my life right now.
Yeah, no, and it makes sense. And there's a bunch of other biological reasons why that adds up too, right? With your dopamine and stuff. I was gonna say, why don't you were saying about Michael Phelps before?
Oh,
why don't you say that one again because that was interesting.
I read this really great book. I highly recommend it. It's called The Power of Habit. And in it, one of the key points that he made, like he used illustrations to prove his points or whatever, but in Michael Phelps, 6 hours before any race, he would start his routine. And like he'd always have this consistent routine where he'd listen to this music playlist, he'd eat this breakfast, he'd eat this like lunch, and he'd do these exercises and these stretches, so that when he went to the race, where everyone else it was an event that they were getting to, it was just part of his routine.
Right.
So it's like
being a massively successful swimmer was just part of his habit.
Yeah, it was just he's doing that to get to this side of the routine. It's not like the end of the routine. It's like then he does this or whatever, and it's just a blip on his routine map.
Yeah.
So it's like no matter what, like if anything goes wrong, like he has enough time to get back into his routine and like just carry on through it.
Yeah.
So like whereas everyone else is struggling and striving and like stressed out for this. This big swim of their life or whatever, he's just going through an average day. And it's just a factor thing, and that's one of the reasons why he was so effective as a swimmer. And like rarely ever shit the bed as people who are in high stress athletes have been known to do every now and again, where they'll get to the main league and then they'll like collapse or whatever.
Right, because it's become a different event in their minds, and it's not an event their body has done. Right, you don't swim the Olympics every day. Yeah. You don't swim the Olympics every day. So if you let yourself know and you keep thinking about I'm doing something I've never done, your body's gonna go, okay, let's go into open mode where we just figure it out. Right, because that's smart. If you're in a genuinely new situation, you kind of go into receptive mode where you're like, okay, let's just learn everything we can, and then we'll get it done later.
Yeah.
Instead, what you need to be in, because although it's an Olympic swim, it's the same friggin' pool he's swam a million times because it's the same size, right? So it's the exact same thing. He just has to do the exact same thing he's done successfully, 15,000 times.
Yeah,
you have to convince your body that you're just doing the thing it already knows how to do, and then it allows you to trigger. And having that habit allows him to just trigger that exact same chain of
Yeah,
reactions until you do yourself.
that's exactly it, and that's the key to consistency is having something to put you in that mind space. Like most people, it's the morning routine, but I can point to three things that I believe are like the most fundamental things that you can do consistently that will
Okay.
change your life today. That like aren't even that hard to do, right? It's go to sleep at the right time, get enough sleep, whatever that means to you. I'm not even kidding. Like that alone will change your life.
Yeah.
You consistently get enough sleep because you have no idea how hard it is to be tired all day when like if you haven't been well rested. You
Right.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
The next is working out. If you get in like it doesn't have to be weightlifting or anything, although I highly recommend it. But like getting some physical activity to clear out all the crap in your life to give you because we're built physiologically like to act in this world, and sitting at a desk all day doesn't help that part of our life out. And the
No,
last one is
and just to add on to what you're saying as you go, I mean, these are all different systems in your body, right? So the sleep, there's a circadian rhythm, and there's
yeah,
a, I don't remember the other rhythm, the natural sleep cycle. With your body, there's rhythms with your blood pressure, with your nervous system, and with your fat absorption, and all kinds of things that go in these little rhythms. So I'll let you keep going, but that's working out and stuff. Those are ways of helping you gain control of that rhythm, and
yeah.
you tap into that rhythm in order to maintain to ride it successfully, as
Well,
opposed to just letting it happen.
I found out that like big portion of our body doesn't actually have systems to get rid of waste in
Right.
it. And
Okay.
what it does is it relies on your motion to be able to push stuff
Right.
out. There's no
Oh
system
yeah,
like a
yeah,
blood
yeah,
system that will take it like once it gets it out, but it requires motion in order
yeah.
to push out the gunk. So like if you're not moving around, you're actually just building up toxins in your body. And
Right. I
only by
heard I
moving
heard a
around
theory
it
that
actually clears up. What?
sorry, I heard a couple different theories related to that, to do with, I think, appendicitis and a couple other organ malfunctions that were to do with basically lack of movement, lack of exercise,
Yeah.
because that was what your body relied on. There's stuff in our body that relies, basically on gravity feed and on, physical motion, not exclusively, but in large part. So
Yeah.
you can continue. Sorry, I think you had a third one.
Absolutely. And then the last one is eating right.
Diet. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, diet. And like those three things, when just doing those simple things, you'd be surprised at how easy it is to focus and do things that you wanted to do all along, but never were like, like when you get home from work or something like that, and you're
Yeah.
hungry and tired or whatever. Well, that's like a direct sign of you not getting enough food or the proper food, and like not getting enough sleep. So then
Yeah.
you can't do this. You can't go and research how to program. So you can never develop your life. All you do is sit down,
You can never gain any
watch TV.
capital to actually improve yourself.
Yeah, yeah. You just go for short, like narrow term things, and like that's the thing is like if you consistently hit these things, then like like everything else is easy. It's easy.
Well, and I think this is, and this
Took
is
me so long to figure that out.
yeah, and that's
Yeah,
that's
I've
so
wasted
that's so
so much
huge.
time. Sorry.
Sorry, it's so huge because what everyone talks about, I mean, scientifically, the people who are most successful in general are the people who are able to delay gratification the most.
No.
That's like one of those big correlations that they're not entirely certain. I don't think it's certain whether it's a correlation causation thing, but they're being able to delay gratification and being hugely successful communicate with each other, right? They both aid each other. And I have found, like what you're just saying, having those things in that rhythm and in that control and within your control, and also being aware of them, so that when you fall off, you understand what is happening, right? That you're not just arbitrarily angry or frustrated or self-loathing, but that it's coming from maybe an internal place, but that it's aided by your body being out of touch. Understanding that gives you the ability to delay gratification. Now, I don't have like a really great scientific study or backing for this to back it up, but I just know from my personal experience, as I'm sure you've experienced, and I'm sure anyone who thinks about it has experienced. When you get a good meal that's actually healthy, not something that just knocks you out and is full of sugar and crap,
No.
but a good meal that's really healthy and a good workout and a good sleep, nothing can harm you. You are like invincible. Like there's no thing a person can say that will just make you really upset or angry. You know,
Yeah.
getting cut off in traffic, you're like, oh, I guess I better slow down to let this person in. Like, you just don't care because it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And
You
I
have,
think maybe probably a huge part of that is that when we're deficient in those things, evolutionarily or biologically, being deficient in one of those means that there's a deficiency, like like that's a big deal, right? Like if there's not enough food to go around, you're like in hyper aggression mode because you're like, fuck, right? Someone's been screwing me over for food. Someone else has been taking my food, or there's not enough food. I need to be out there. I need to be focused. I need to be angry. I need to be hunting. I need to be like getting something, right? Get my adrenaline going. That's your
yeah.
body's way of trying to help you get back to a state of like equilibrium with
Yeah.
enough food, enough sleep. Not enough sleep means theoretically, you know, in a past history of man, not enough sleep means there's probably predators, right? Or there's danger. You're having to move away from something, right? You're traveling all the time. You can't sleep enough. It's probably because you're getting away from something, right? Or getting to where there's food. All of those things indicate that there's serious danger. So your body is going to go into stress and danger and anger and frustration mode
Yeah.
when you don't have your rhythms properly aligned.
Yeah.
When your body doesn't know what to expect and doesn't know
Yeah,
how
and
to get there.
it's gonna go on to that instant gratification cycle where it's like, oh, like there's a berry, eat it now and get the hell out of here.
Get
Like,
the sugar. Get
just
the sugar because the sugar will keep you alive now. It'll for sure give
yeah,
you the energy
yeah,
you need. Sugar is great for that. That's like the best use of sugar, right? An emergency or a huge long distance run or something like that. You need something you can
it's
just
an emergency. It's in a stressful environment. Long
yeah
distance run, you're taxing everything
yeah
in your system, and it's an emergency to get some sugars back into it.
yeah, which is why sugar is so synonymous with other forms of instant gratification, like drugs, like smoking, nicotine or coffee or whatever it is for people, whether it's I don't know,
But it is
watching porn or
underplayed, and I don't think people have stressed enough the correlation. But like, it's starting to come out now. But like the correlation between sugar, sugar is the most dangerous drug out there,
yeah
by far, like worse than just about anything else you could possibly name, because it's so subtle, and everyone's hooked on it, and it's like commonplace. Like you're not allowed to
mhm.
smoke indoors anymore. You're not allowed to get drunk
Yeah
except in bars, But like sugar, go nuts all the time. Just have as much sugar. Like there's pop at every fast food counter. There's
yeah
pop machines where you work. Like it's just like yeah, go nuts. And like until you go off pop for a while and then take a drink of it, you don't understand how powerful
It's so as soon as you have that first drink, it's like
day and night.
heroin or cocaine or it's like you're like,
They
whoa,
said it's more
holy
addictive than
shit.
cocaine. They've actually done studies, and sugar's more addictive than cocaine. And
Yeah.
they did a MRI or like a brain scan, and it lights up the exact same parts of the brain that
Right.
cocaine does when you do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean,
It's
sorry,
just,
I say of course because to me this is like, oh man, I'm so
yeah.
aware of this stuff. I've learned so much, but yeah, it's probably not.
No,
Maybe
but
not.
like I still see some of my friends like just pounding coke all the time. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like, do you
Yeah.
like and I can't judge too much because I still smoke, but like I'm just like, what do you get out of this? Like, are you serious?
Yeah. Well, but it's happening unconsciously, which is why getting conscious control over those rhythms, that's
Yeah.
what the mind over matter is. Mind over matter isn't wishing it, isn't willing it. Mind over matter is getting conscious control of these rhythms that happen in your body. And again, not an iron grip thing. Not like I'm going to work out at
No.
6 a.m., even if it makes me feel like shit every day. If it makes you feel like shit every day, your body might not be cut out for morning workouts. Try an
Yeah.
evening workout, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to listen to your body. You can't iron fist it all the time. You have to listen to it, get the feedback from it. But in that listening, you have to test things. And this brings me to that other point with consistency. One of the other huge advantages. We'll talk about the Michael Phelps lead up. When you have a 6-hour routine before a big event, just kidding, including a big event, that's part of your 6-hour routine. My mistake.
Yeah.
When you have a 6-hour routine that includes a really important activity like that, by having that routine down to what shoes you wear, like how you wash your face, you know what I mean? Like the direction when everything is that controlled, this is what allows you to change things and actually figure out what's working.
Right.
Otherwise, regression to the mean will always control you. You'll change something and go, oh, it made things better, because I was having a shitty day. I did this one thing and it made it better the next day. Or I'm
Yeah.
having a great day and I did this one thing, it made it worse. It's not. It's just that sometimes things just change randomly. Basically, usually things will just be normal. So if you have a crazy day and you do something, it doesn't mean it made it better. It just means it went back to how it usually is, no matter what you did. So you
Yeah.
will always fall prey to those sort of statistical anomalies and math tricks, basically,
Yeah.
like that, unless you're able to actually control a overwhelming amount of the variables
Yeah.
and keep them exactly the same. Then Michael Phelps can go, oh, I look at his calendar and go, hey, it looks like during the first half of this month, so far, my swims have been short by, whatever his measurement is, like 1/10 of a second or something. And then you look at it and go, oh, yeah, right, I cut out, in my diet, I haven't been eating avocados because they're out of season. And then
Right.
you realize, like, all right, I need slightly more fat in my morning diet
Yeah.
because and you can actually tell down to that level
Yeah.
what's making a difference. Now, not everyone's an Olympic swimmer. Most of us maybe even aren't.
Yeah.
But
The principle's still the same.
no, but the principle's the same. If you want to find what you're good at or find out how to be successful at something you already really love, you can't do it through random chance.
Yeah.
You have to control the variables, get them all under wraps and consistent. Then
Yeah.
you can change them one at a time and actually go, hey, that's it. That was the one. The
Yeah.
thing that was really throwing me off wasn't sleep. It wasn't working out. It wasn't even diet. It was that one friend I hang out with before I go do,
Yeah.
my big
Yeah.
bowling game every time. And that friend is actually just demotivating for whatever reason. They're fun
Yeah.
to drink with or they're, fun to party with, but they set me in this headspace that's the wrong place.
Yeah.
And that's how you
That's,
learn what those things are.
and
Go ahead.
honestly, like by my example, I moved out to Vancouver for a year.
Yeah.
Didn't have a job or whatever, just to like nail this down. Because like before, I was very chaotic and very all over the place. Like I thrived in chaos because that's the thing. I get those unintentional good points
Right.
without any like actually having to like realize why I was getting them or whatever.
Well, no,
Right?
the gambler's addiction, right? Intermittent
Yeah.
random rewards is like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, nice, yeah,
Yeah.
cool, like,
And just shit would always happen. I mean, it was fun for a long time, but I got to a point where like, hey, I'm getting old. Like I'm turning 25, or like I was 25 at the time when I moved out,
Yeah.
and like I was like, hey, I need to get this sorted or whatever. So I moved there, and what I did was I gave myself some goals, but like I kind of failed at them because I set them way too high and like whatever. But that was kind of the point of me doing it, was to set and see how I would do in like when I risk everything or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And what I actually taught me was the consistency and how this actually works out. Because like the day, and this is ingrained in my mind now, the days that I woke up at the right time, ate the right food, and like did the morning routine, I got shit done. And if I did that consistently through the whole thing, I would have nailed all these unimaginably difficult goals out of the park. Like they're
Because
really
you make serious progress on the days where you actually lined everything up.
exactly on the days that I didn't, which were way more than before. Like I just lost it, and it was only. I swear to God, like I was the most useless person in the world before I did this. It was only once I sat down and was like, hey, let's hammer this out, and like did this and got that ingrained in me that I could actually come back to my life in Calgary and start working towards a real goal and like real objectives rather than a chaotic, oh, I hope I get lucky someday, kind of mentality at life. I can actually start working towards something, and that was the most like relieving. Like it took such a huge weight off my shoulder where it's like, hey, I don't have to luck out. I'm not going to overpower this just by being smart and like doing some crazy.
By willing it, not just by willing it, by being, I want to be really
No, I will just slowly make success until I get it. And like I fundamentally believe that because like even I'm sure you can attest the point where I'm at now versus when I started.
Yeah.
Like night and day.
Oh yeah.
And it's beautiful.
And I want to throw in there because to do with talking about the luck and stuff. I mean everyone knows that poor people play the lottery and rich people generally don't, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole lot of reasons and thoughts behind it, but I think it really ties into what you're saying there. And it's causation the other way around. Like the lottery doesn't make people poor, I don't think. But it's that concept, and I think a lot of people that are stuck in poverty, and I can speak to that because I have been, that feeling like something's just gonna happen that'll make it better. So like the lottery will just happen, or someone will just finally give you that job that you want, right? You'll just get the job, you'll just do the thing, and things will just happen and it'll just work out. I think the reason that's so prevalent, and the reason it's prevalent among unsuccessful people, is because it causes not success. And I know that I've done it myself, and it's been a huge part of my life. I've always liked the chaos. The chaos has always made me feel comfortable. And I've always gone, yeah, I'm good at dealing with chaos, which is great. You know, I'm good at dealing with confusing situations, I guess. But what it really means is that I was just hiding. It was just a method of hiding. It was a method of not letting myself find out the true result. When you play the lottery, you don't ever have to measure yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have to measure your skill and find out, am I up to this standard? And that doesn't mean you're a bad person if you're not. It just means you have to put in more time. You have to work harder at it. You have to learn that skill more intently.
Yeah.
But when you play the lottery, and the figurative lottery, is a lot of people do, poor people do as well. You know, you move around different jobs and you whatever. You're using that chaos as a shield to actually test yourself.
Yeah.
You're using that as a shield to stop yourself from finding out how hard it is, how much left you have to go. And I've always done that myself, and it's, you know, it's been a hard realization getting to that point, and I still fight it all the time. But yeah, is knowing that chaos hasn't been helping me. It's been obscuring the truth.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've still been incredibly successful with it. I've achieved awesome things and done great things. And other times it's been totally horrible. But it basically seems like random chance or just a bunch of stuff happening, which has just kept me feeling comfortable and safe.
Yeah.
There's no all-seeing eye of truth going, this is bad. What you're doing sucks and it's not working. Instead, it's like, well, this sometimes works and it kind of works, and I do a little bit of this and that anyway, so who knows, and whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the key to pulling yourself out of that situation. That's one of the keys. One of the really important keys is not loving the random chance. Not falling prey to going, oh, who knows, I guess stuff just happens. Sure, stuff does just happen. Unless you start to control everything. Unless you start to lay everything in a row and go, I do this, and then I do this, and then I do this. And to know your situation, and to know yourself, and to know your body. And you can't know your body until you control the variables and change them one at a time. Then you can find out, turns out I actually hate eating meat. Turns out I love eating meat. Turns out it turns out my body loves sleeping in 4-hour bursts for whatever reason. Some people are just weird. That's just how it is. You know you never know yourself until you put yourself in a situation where you can learn, and you can't learn if everything's chaotic.
You know, and I see a lot of people struggle with this, and like I struggled with that too for, you know, majority of my life, and I still do in a lot of ways. One of the things I found is oh man, I just lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
It's so addictive to be stuck in this cycle of like chaos or whatever, because it's fun, and you've always wanted to like stop yourself from being normal and predictable like everyone else is around you, and you think this is a way of rebelling against the system and like striking out as your own and like design or whatever, you know. And this happens, I think, especially to like intelligent kids, where they get like, fuck this, I'm not doing this kind of thing. Like, I'm not gonna do your routine or your homework or whatever, and I'm just gonna do random things, and it pays off. Like, you get to have cool adventures here, there, and everywhere, you know. But you never actually get to a point where you're like, you get to know yourself and what you're capable of. And like, it's this, it just as you were saying, it's this huge shield that you wear by not getting into this like habit or like this lifestyle where you can actually perform and become as powerful as you could be, rather than just being like a mosquito flying around stinging everyone, you know, and like having fun here and there or whatever, like becoming like a solid mountain of like, okay, I can do this and I can accomplish this. And, you know, it's such a terrifying step to be like, hey, well, right now I'm a pebble and I still got to build up from there, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's two-part, because it shields you from learning the truth, and it also helps you to pretend that you don't have goals. When you're constantly enmeshed in chaos, it helps you to pretend like, it doesn't matter, I just wanted to do random whatever anyway. right? I just wanted to just go to different parties and hitchhike around
Right.
and do whatever forever anyway.
But
You know, it allows
you
you to
get
not have
so
to.
bored of it is the thing. You know,
It's
you just
super
start
boring.
going, you just start finding chaos, not because it's entertaining. Like at first it's entertaining as hell. But like later, like you're going to another house party and it's like the same house party that you've been to 30 million times. And
Yeah,
like, oh,
exactly.
someone gets
There's a
punched in the
couple people.
kitchen.
Yeah, there's
You
a
know?
couple people banging in the bedroom. There's somebody else banging in the bathroom. There's somebody
Yeah,
doing a beer bong in the kitchen. Yeah, it sounds like fun until you've seen it like 20 times and you're
yeah.
like, yeah, it's not actually chaos anymore. In fact,
But
it's
it
really
should be
structured.
fun. It should be entertaining. And but the thing is, we've driven after this for so long that it's lost all meaning to us. It's like
Yeah,
the same thing as like a coke addict, you know, where
yeah,
like they don't get any more pleasure out of cocaine. They
yeah.
don't like it. They just do it because they have to. Like they don't want to do anything else because it's
Well, that's what
uncomfortable to do anything else.
that's what all smokers experience as well, and everybody says is, I mean, smoking doesn't do much for them at that
Yeah,
point, right? When you're a regular smoker, it doesn't really do much for you.
yeah,
When you're new to smoking, it's like, holy fuck. And I know because I've done smoked shisha or whatever, like just pure tobacco or pure nicotine. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, but I've done it and you get like a head rush and it's like, oh
yeah.
crap, and it throws you on your ass. But after you smoked for a while, you're just doing it. You're
Yeah.
just doing it, and the pros and cons don't necessarily add up. You know, like they don't necessarily add up to anything valuable for you.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else you want to throw in there?
Well, I was just gonna read the quote again.
Yeah,
Like I was
totally.
just yeah, I highly recommend going after trying to form some kind of habit because like until you try it out,
Yep.
you don't know what you're missing. And like this is taken from me, someone who has consistently tried not to have habits in my entire life, and I finally like seen the light at like 27. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, this is how we do it, right?
Well, and
Um,
actually, I want to throw in one thing though is that it's still in conjunction with being able to take risks and jump out and take risks.
right.
Those risks are only valuable if you have a habit to break from.
Yeah.
Because when you have the habit, you know pretty much exactly what you currently have and what it brings you.
Yeah.
When you take that risk and when you jump out, that's when you can go, you can actually take that, and it's scary. It's even scarier, especially if you're enmeshed. But when you take that risk, that's when you can find out, holy shit, I did this, and this improved, and this improved, and this changed, and this got a little harder, but I was able to overcome it with this. That's when you can learn about yourself. If
Yeah.
you're just living in chaos, taking risks isn't really taking risks. It's kind of just doing the next thing.
Yeah, it's being a part of it. Like it's just
Yeah. So
push.
it's those habits and consistency are even more important so that you can break them and find out what you're missing.
Yeah.
Without them, you'll never know what the value of breaking them is.
Yeah. So
Uh,
again, we
yeah, no, I
are
was gonna say go with the Aristotle. Go ahead with the Aristotle quote. I want to hear that again.
yeah.
I think we'll
So
call it a
again,
day there.
we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna cut it there.